Good day, my relatives. This is Orest Zwozdesky from the Vision and Voices Collective. You can find me at www.visionandvoices.ca, together in collaboration with my partner Sherry Cameron from The Pathway to More, where she can be found at www.thepathwaytomore.com. I'm pleased to say that we have followed our vision and have created this Evolutionary Emergence virtual experience where we've called together 2,500 plus people from across the planet to join us online to see what the emerging future wants to share with us. Please welcome our next speaker.
Well, yay, welcome. Our next speaker is our host, Orest Zwozdesky. Orest, let me just take a moment to introduce you, and then I'm going to give you the stage. So a little bit about Orest. Orest is a person of Métis Cree ancestry, born and raised in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. His mother's family come from Green Lake, Saskatchewan. Orest is credentialed through the International Coach Federation, ICF, and he is trained in numerous modalities, including natural language processing, NLP, core alignment coaching, shadow work, and appreciative inquiry, to name just a few. He has over 28 years experience helping people access and develop their gifts, talents, and abilities to create avenues of expression in order to transform their lives, their relationships, and livelihoods. Through evolutionary life coaching sessions, personal development workshops, and public speaking engagements, Orest has been able to touch the lives of thousands of people in person and online through the course of his career. Welcome, Orest. Stage is yours.
Thank you, Sherry. Bear with me, everybody, here with the voice. I'm not certain what happened here, but at a time when I really needed my voice, something is shifting inside of me as a result of this work. So I'm rolling with it. I want to thank Glenn, who offered up a little bit of energy work to help me out here and get me ready here. So thank you to Glenn and Bonnie and everybody. I want to start off by sharing just a brief story. My friend up in the Yukon, my elder, who kind of took me under his wing when I was a younger man, age 26, and just first came into sobriety. Throughout the years, we've been engaging one another in a really beautiful mentorship relationship. And anyways, he shared a story with me once where he's a Tlingit person, but he was in his community and he was really, hungry to learn about their language. And so there was an elder in the community, and everybody just called her Auntie. And they would go, in the day, and still in certain small communities, people just kind of pop in, and it's not a big deal. So, he popped in, and they would sit and have tea, and then they'd begin to she'd begin to speak, and he would, sit and listen. And so at some point they were, having a tea and a little snacky, and suddenly her great granddaughter went crawling across the floor. And in the language, she said something about the little girl. And my friend said, "What did you say?" And so she said, the word that I shared, and she explained it to him. What it translates to loosely in English is, I'm referring to my great granddaughter as my ongoing breath. And so he said after that, something shifted for him in his understanding of where he came from and his ancestors, because he'd always up till that point thought about the ancestors like there was somebody out here somewhere in a far off place or something, right? And after that, he said, I realized I am my ancestors. They're deeply encoded inside of my DNA. I am who I am. I look the way that I do. I have certain characteristics, qualities, and traits the way that I do as a result of my ancestors who came before me. And so after that, he shared this with me, and I walked away from that, and I thought, wow, that's incredible. And then I thought to myself, hmm, so that makes me a diplomat on behalf of all of my relations that came before me. And when I really sat and kind of sunk into that, I realized, wow, um, so many generations of people that came before me to create life, all the way up to the point where, my parents were born, and now here I am. And I really was able to tune into something that was quite strong. And when I step into that awareness that I am, in fact, a diplomat on behalf of my relatives, I show up in the world in a different way. There's like an honor or a legacy or an integrity to that or a strength to that that I that I can identify and feel and have a knowing about. And so I carry that with me, and I do try and remember that as much as possible. And just to give you a little example, and some of the people that are online already here, they've heard this before, but ancestral mathematics, they say that 12 generations of our family that came before us makes up 413 years in time. So 12 generations goes back 413 years, and it's the number of people that came before us in those just 12 generations, not all the generations back, just 12, is 4,094 people that came before us to give us life 12 generations ago. And of course, our families extend way beyond 12 generations in time. And so, a diplomat on behalf of all of those people. And I recognize that um, they are inside of me, and at a very foundational cellular DNA encoded level, they're inside of me. And so there is accessibility there to their wisdom. And I took some teachings with a man here, several years ago, just talking about ancestral healing and connection. And what I want to do is invite you guys here in a moment. I'll just kind of explain it, and then I'll ask you to do it. In terms of connecting with our ancestors, um, if you thought about your maternal line of your family and your mother, your father, for example, my both of my parents are deceased now, and I know you're probably thinking that I'm way too young to have both of my parents deceased. Um, anyways, when I go down the maternal line, my mother is now my ancestor. And so her parents, my grandmother, my Kokum and my Muslim in the Cree language, as we call them, but my grandfather and my grandmother. And because I know my family tree on the native side of my family, I know who my great grandparents are, their names and stuff. And so I'll literally say their names. My mother, Lita Obashan, my grandmother, Helen Obashan, and Albert Obashan, and my great grandfather's name was Joe Obashan, and that's on my grandpa's side. Then on my grandmother's side, the name is Laurent Garneau. Anyways, I don't. I found out more about my father's side recently, and so my dad is my ancestor as well, and he's Orest Zwozdesky Senior, and his parents, Annie and Peter, and Peter's father and mother, Joseph and Mary Zwozdesky. So literally, I say their names, and I invite them to come in and be with me, and so it was fascinating. It's fascinating to me when we do this, and I'll invite you guys to do that now. And if you didn't grow up with your family or you don't know them, that's fine. What I typically would do, and because beyond the generations of the family names that I'm aware of, what I'll do is I'll say to my ancestors, for those of you that are here to support the highest good for all of mankind and all of humanity, and for Orist's highest good, I invite you to come and enter the sphere with me, and make yourself known and your presence known inside of my energetic field and inside of my life in ways that I'll understand. And so to be able to do that, and some people get a really big noticing of something that begins to emerge, and some people not so much. And that it's not an experience of right or wrong. It's an experience of us stepping in, maybe for the first time, and doing this, and maybe we notice something really, really strong, or maybe it's very subtle, or maybe we're not sure. And I would encourage you to continue to practice this because we're opening ourselves to the ancestral realm. And it's an opportunity for us to work with that realm. And even when we come to ceremony and people say, I'm not sure what I want to pray about in ceremony, it's like, you could conceivably ask your ancestors to make themselves known to you in your life, and in ways that you'll understand. Maybe that's the dreamscape. Maybe you'll hear something, you'll see something, you'll feel something. All of a sudden, somebody points you towards some information about ancestral stuff. Somebody gives you a book about it. Somebody shows you a YouTube video about it. Something will resonate, right? This can show up as I've worked with people before, and it shows up a smell triggers the association and then opens up something inside of us, right? Quick story about my grandfather, Peter. I never met him, except I never met him when I was old enough to know him. I met him very briefly within a few months of my birth, and my parents met him. He was living in Edmonton at the time, and apparently he grabbed me and he was holding me in the back seat of the vehicle, and he was just really enamored with me, and he was, speaking very beautifully about this precious little boy and my grandson and all these things, and thanking my mother profusely for having such a beautiful little boy that her and my dad created. And then shortly after that, he passed away. And so, whenever I used to go to ceremony, I always used to just call on the native side of my family because it's a native ceremony that I attend. And so, I opened up to inviting the Ukrainian side of my family to come to ceremony with me and make themselves known and present. And when I used to call on my grandfather Peter, I used to just get like, it's like I was hit in the chest with this energy, and my heart would just open, and I could feel this incredible, um, just this incredible happiness and this joy. And so much so, the first probably half dozen times that it happened, it made me emotional and I began crying. And just a real joy. And even now I can feel this little sparkle of joy when I talk about them. And so the way that shows up for us is a variety of ways, but this is a very deep and grounding practice to get into, and just sitting with that for a while and noticing whatever we notice around that. And so being able to call in our ancestors in that way and sit with them and ask them to make themselves known to us is a really beautiful way to ground, and it gives us a sense of place and a sense of history, because they're going to show us things, and the ancestral space is open to us in ways that maybe it previously wasn't. So what I want to get into next is just talking about in the Cree teachings, and my mother was a Cree and French lady, and so stories that I've heard from an elder here locally that knows the original Cree creation stories, but there's another fella who knows a lot about the Cree star stories and the legends and things that go with that. And so he shared at one point that this was common knowledge among the people, but before we're born on this planet, we go visit a being, and that being's name is Achak Esqueo. And what that translates to is Star Woman. And so apparently, from whatever level of divinity we're operating at a soul level before we take a physical form, we would go and visit this being called Star Woman. And before we came down into the earth, we'd do a life review with Star Woman. And we'd go through all the stuff, and she'd kind of be guiding us, like, here's who your parents are going to be, and here's some of the experiences that you're going to have, and here's what's going to happen when you go down there. You're not going to be in this place right now of all this divine understanding and of the cosmos and otherworldly things and whatever. You're going to forget most of that. And you're going to go down there and you're going to experience hardship and you're going to experience suffering, just like everyone else on the planet, just like the planet itself going through its hard times due to the way that humans treat the earth and the things that we do to it. And not to make anybody wrong, but just our current practices, right? And so I believe that we kind of take on a little piece of that suffering on behalf of our relatives that came before us and on behalf of our Mother Earth. And so it's honorable. There's an integrity inside of us being able to recognize that and continue to do the work on ourselves in the way that we show up, and we cultivate these understandings through the power of relationships with other people. Anyways, we go and we visit Star Woman, and the next thing you know, I think maybe the last question she asks us at that level is, Are you sure you want to go? And um, so then phew, we cascade down, and here we come, right? We're in the earth plane, and we're born, and uh, I believe that maybe we have a bit of a memory recall with things of the life review we do with Star Woman, because I know that in my life there were some very distinct defining moments of events that occurred, and my life totally went on to a different trajectory. And that brings me here today. Had I been in a place, like as an example, I did a pretty serious dance with alcohol and drugs up until the point I came into sobriety when I was age 26. And I tried to quit these things myself unsuccessfully. And one day, without getting into a big story, I had a total epiphany, a total awakening in a moment that happened. It was like a divine intervention. And after that, my life totally changed. I got in line with ceremony. I met my elder and started doing that. I got into this personal growth and development uh, place where I was just like on fire with it, right? And I used to read books like just like unstoppable reading. And I remember my elder used to say to me, throw away the books. You don't need to read that stuff. What you need is right in front of you. Everything you need is within you, and whatever is in front of you, your spirit's going to take the lead, and it's going to show you what you need to know, and the things that you're going to need to know, and the teachings that you're going to receive when you pay attention. Which, by the way, is the last thing he says before he sends us up the mountain on a fast for 4 days. Pay attention. You might notice something. And so when we pay attention, we can begin to recognize what's showing up on our radar. So we're projecting our consciousness out there into the field of awareness, the field of infinite possibilities. And so we project ourselves onto others and all the, the variety of ways that we do. And when we come into more awareness, we can begin to understand things about these projections, and we can, it's almost like a mechanism for interpreting what's showing up on our radar as direction and guidance. And if we pay attention, we can begin to move in the directions that we feel called to move. And so, one example of this is how many times, when people maybe want to put a Y in the chat to acknowledge, how many times do you notice that things show up on your radar in threes? And it's a strong, when we're paying attention, it's a strong indication that, holy smokes, like, here's the way to go, right? We're being guided and directed. And so, of course, we can always choose not to do that and maybe suffer some of the consequences later, or we can roll with it, right? And so, one of the ways that I practice really projecting out there into the world is asking myself questions that I truly want and need at times the answer to. And that could be bigger or profound questions, or it can be, I'm working on some workshop content and I'd want to process what's my process for this piece of content in the evolutionary edge. And the next thing you know, things just show up, and direction to YouTube videos, direction to a podcast, a book falls into my lap, somebody shares a story about something, all the different ways that these things show up. A meme shows up on my radar and speaks directly to the heart of what it is that I'm holding a question for. So even the way that Sherry and I came about holding this virtual experience, it just popped on our radar. Hey, do you want to do this thing? Okay, sure. Well, as soon as we said that, it's like this stream of thought that began to enter into my mind. And I said, hey, what do you think about the Evolutionary Emergence virtual experience as a name? And she's like, I like it. And so, in short order, things just started rolling. And so, just connecting back into Star Woman, doing the life review, I think at certain points along the way, the trail is there already for us. Our spirit went ahead and was like that scout and is drawing information to us. And when we pay attention, we can notice what's showing up and we can begin to move in these directions. And so, from that vantage point, um, we can let go of struggle if we want, and we can pay attention and we can notice what's showing up on our radar and what's being reflected back to us through the power of relationships that we have with other people. I mentioned this the other day with somebody that I interviewed, one of the presenters, and I think it was Jerry actually. Greg Braden, who's a spiritual teacher, from way back in the day, he wrote a book called Those Who Walk Between the Worlds, and he started talking about the power of relationships and the mirrors of relationship. And he was guiding tours in Egypt and all different kind of sacred places around the world. And he said that what he began to realize was that people were going into these temples and into these pyramids and into these places. And the Essenes had teachings that said, specifically about the great pyramids in Egypt, that each one of the chambers inside the pyramid was a space where a person would show up and they would isolate an aspect of their personality and work on those aspects of their personality and so that they could work through it and then they could let that go and then they could show up and be completely transformed and show up in the world in an entirely different way. And so he said, you can go to these sacred temples and these sacred places, and you're going to have an incredible experience without a doubt. And the energy dynamics of the world nowadays through the evolution of consciousness, which Dr. Kalaman and Patricia Albert touched into this morning, the ninth wave of consciousness, the most sacred temples we can enter into is the temple of relationships with one another because the energy dynamics are such that we're going to have these powerful mirrors in relationship reflecting back to us the things that we really need to know, the things that we really need to accept about ourselves, and the ways that we can show up in the world and change our behaviors and release patterns and the universe truly is it's a living universe. It's our higher selves are connected to the living universe, and they're showing us everything that we need to know. And our work is to pay attention. Our work is to stay grounded, to stay centered, and to stay open. Yaron talked about this yesterday in his talk. Staying open is of the utmost importance. And so, from that vantage point, the living earth is truly this playground for consciousness where the universe is supporting us and we have this ability to project out there. And so we have an electromagnetic energy system. And the electric part of the system is with the mind. And the mind is what we use to project into the emergent field. And so the receiving component to the electromagnetism is our heart. Our heart is what draws things to us. And so Dr. Kevin this morning eloquently spoke about our emotional system, and he didn't refer to it as a guidance system, but essentially it's a guidance system is going to let us know or alert us that we need to spend some time visiting with those emotional parts of ourselves because that way more of us can show up inside the relationships. And just getting back to the bits of the ancestral training, when we go into the ancestral spaces, the teacher used to talk about the past only exists as a frozen part of our energy system within our consciousness. As soon as we go into those spaces that reveal themselves to us, we liberate that energy and then we become even more present. We become, we create literally more space inside of our energetic system to be present. So with this whole mechanism that's going on, that's the component to releasing and letting go of the imprints and the past things that are there. And the ancestral forces can truly help us and support us to do that. And so the way our nervous system is wired is we have an ability to make our own personal ground into the earth. And we do, and it's strong, and we can work on strengthening it. We have the ability to connect in with the ancestral forces, and it's strong, and it helps to create even more space inside of our energetic system. And then we have the ability to connect into the collective part of ourselves because we're all connected inside of this collective field of infinite intelligence here on the earth and beyond. And so each one of these three places, the personal ground, the ancestral ground, the collective ground, it all accesses a different part of our nervous system. And so it's an incredible system that we have, and truly this incredible technology that's self-healing and self-referencing and draws to us through our connection to the higher self. And so I get into lots of this stuff in my Evolutionary Edge online program. And so these are just some of the teachings related to the program. And I love speaking about these things because um, it's really, really, to me, it's really powerful. And I know the time's drawing near that, and I got to wrap it up here in a few minutes, but I really want to be able to speak to just the our energy. And so we're more than just this physical body, obviously. We have an emotional body, a physical body, a spiritual body. We have the mental body. And for those of you that are familiar with a toroidal field, or some people, if you can imagine a donut laying there with that hole in the center of it, that's essentially what a toroidal field looks like around our body. And so here we are as this central channel, or the way the elders used to talk about, we can allow ourselves to be a hollow bone of creation. And so Dr. Carl alluded to this morning in his slides about the Mayan people when they had the sacred tree of life. The sacred tree of life, the top of the tree was outside the spiral galaxy, and it was a channel through the trunk all the way down and made its roots inside of the earth. And that's a cosmic tree of life. In our native ceremonies, we have a Sundance ceremony where we're honoring the sacred tree of life, which, native people, traditional elders probably don't use these terms, but inside of that field of energy, that giant toroidal field, we come together in a community way and we heal each other. Our system gets super regulated with the vibration of the singers and the whistles that are blowing and the dancers that are dancing and generating energy, and they're praying, and the people in the circle are praying, and everybody is this giant collective of ceremony and ritual supporting one another, and ultimately receiving healing, and ultimately receiving answers to prayers, and ultimately receiving everything that they need. It gets placed into their energetic field, into that hollow bone, into that toroidal field of energy that supports us. So it's like a cleansing, a clearing, and a purification. And then we can move on forward and continue to stay grounded. But the hollow bone, and so I talk about this in the toroidal field, the hollow bone, where we connect up into the cosmos, a column of light on top of our heads. And it goes all the way out into this center of the spiral galaxy and out beyond that. And then we open up into a space where I perceive it as a room and a council that's there. And I refer to that council as my council of 12, or my soul light family, or my tribe, my cellular tribe, whatever you want to refer to that as. And when I come popping up through this portal and I'm in that space, many years ago I did this, but I often remind people, if they do that, they go up in there, but drop the anchor down into the center of the earth and right into the core of the earth, and it can be any kind of visual image. I oftentimes will use the image of this green, forest green, shimmering ball of light, and our energetic anchor comes out the bottom of our torso and goes in there. So we're connected in the earth, we're connected in the cosmos and the soul light family. And I let them know I'm now ready to take my rightful place inside of this cellular family that's here with me to help guide me in my process and my journey here on the earth. And I invite you guys to be able to, at this time, if you quickly whip through that visual, and it's going to be a part of the three-part meditation series anyway that we're going to be offering later, but you can just quickly do this now. You connect into that cellular level, you meet your soul light family, and you let them know, you know what? I'm now ready to take my rightful place in this circle. And I invite you guys to come down that sacred column, this hollow bone, and come inside of my field with my ancestors. And I'm grounded down inside the earth. And I connect the earth energy. I connect that cellular energy. It comes down into my heart space. And with my breath, I can pulse energy out into my field, and I can pulse energy out into my field. And so, what we're actually creating is a state of coherence, mind, body, spirit, and emotion all coming into alignment so that we can open our hearts, so that our brain waves are going into a nice alpha brainwave state, into a theta brainwave state, and bumping at a really good place. My heart can open. I'm sending energy out inside of my field. And the Global Coherence Initiative has done research that shows that They can measure heart-centered coherence energy that's coming out your heart up to 5 kilometers away from the body. That might seem super far-fetched, but these guys have the empirical evidence to and the data to back that up. So things that mystics talked about through the centuries and knew about is now becoming readily available, and even science is tapping in and proving these things. And quantum science is bringing forward so many things into our awareness about what we believe is possible and what's not possible. One of my beautiful speakers that I love listening to and watching YouTube videos and consuming his Substack writings is Charles Eisenstein, and he talks about the more beautiful worlds that our hearts know is possible. And I love in his TED Talk where he says, you know what? We've tried everything possible from this liminal place of, this 3D oriented version of us in the more material, denser energies of the physical reality. And we've tried everything possible. It hasn't resolved the challenges. And so maybe it's time for us to try the impossible. And part of my knowing for me and the way that I show up in the world, when I do this practice of the hollow bone and opening to the cellular level, grounding down into the earth, bringing forward information, calling out to my higher self, to my guidance, to the beings that support me and serve me, um, I I know that in that space, when my frontal lobes get engaged and the radar screen of imagination and beyond impossible shows up, and I make that connection from a coherent heart, mind, body space, and I can open myself up to receive the guidance, and I can ask, hold questions in my consciousness and in my awareness for the things that I truly want answers to. And we can gather in a family way and in a community way with one another, and we can hold space for one another to have incredible insights and awarenesses. And Dr. Carl mentioned about the downloads. The Mayans were saying that consciousness is now downloading into ourselves. So our job is to stay clear, open, and grounded and pay attention, be aware, because the downloads are coming and we can call them in to the degree that we're ready to them, to the degree that we've created space inside of our emotional, mental, physical, spiritual ground and connections inside of that collective part of ourselves. We can call forward all the insights, all the awarenesses, all the new programming, the new activated programs. We can bring these things inside of ourselves and they'll begin to inform our consciousness, and they'll begin to give us information. They'll begin to give us insight and new awarenesses and everything that we're going to need to know to support ourselves on the journey forward. And so I give thanks to each and every one of you guys that's here today, that's sharing your energy and your presence in this collective field. And as we continue to grow and we tap into the resonance that's in the field right now, and that aligned coherence, and through this space, if you know what the flower of life or the seed of life symbol looks like, these concentric circles that are joined together, our energy bodies joined together in those connected ways like that. And we can go and we can put things into the field and we can vibrate at an amplified rate, which is what my hope is for, not even my hope, my intention for, the rest of this day and tomorrow, and then culminating at 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, where we get together and do a global oneness meditation and we amplify the energies and we call in and we pierce the veil and call in our guides and get those downloads and those new bits of information and those new things to activate in our system so that we can essentially be reborn as a new version of ourselves and let go of the past. And, that might seem like an overly simplified thing. I'm not sure, but I know that we can do it. I know that my life is a testament as living proof that this stuff works. And the things that I'm teaching are based on experiences in my journey, which are different than everybody else's. But I'm telling you right now, it's worked for me. And I feel pretty darn good about who I am, where I'm at, the connection I experience, the incredible people that I know and that I get to interact with. And we've been interacting and will continue to interact with more of these incredible people today and tomorrow. So high vibing people, right? And so if you're here in this summit, I know for sure you're also a high vibing person. So thank you very much for bringing your beauty, your love, your presence to the space and all the work that you're doing in the world. I'm sure you're doing something incredible that supports humanity and is of service to people and the planet. And so I give thanks to you for that. Um, thank you.
Amazing, Oris. Who feels like you're just like "Ah," vibing after that? Yeah, amazing. Lots of comments in the chat. I know that I just wanted to Oris come back to Summer, ask the question, does Oris have a GHC device? Can we can get them here in Edmonton and be a part of the study?
Oh, nice. I don't have a device. I just have the Global Coherence Initiative or Global Coherence Initiative app on my phone. But if you could direct us to that device, man, I'd love to be a part of it. I've been following those guys' work for years.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our
Thanks.
attention, Summer, and Summer's up next too. Yes, get one. She's Oh yeah, so lots of love in the chat, Oris. Thank you for that. And
Mm.
thank you for troopering through the voice thing. It
You
sounds
know,
a little bit
once
better
I
than
got
it
going,
did
it
earlier.
sounds like I got on a roll, so it works.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
like it. I mean, the Reiki must have helped a bit because it sounds a little bit better than it was. So
Yeah,
that's
totally.
great. You were able to to um to move through that. So oh yeah, me too. All of us, Samantha, your sweetheart says, I feel so lit up, inspired. Can't wait for the meditation tomorrow, right? So let's just put a exclamation point on that again. Join us tomorrow well, we'll be doing all the giveaways for the full access pass, people that have upgraded to full access pass. We've got some spectacular goodies to give away then. And then at 4 o'clock, that's Mountain Standard Time tomorrow. I'm losing my days here.
Mhm.
4 p.m. tomorrow, Mountain Standard Time. Oris will be leading us in that Global One meditation. And can you guys feel that? Like,
I can already feel the undertow of this planetary alignment, and we've just been building energy since yesterday, and it continues to build. And so, for those of you that are going to join us for the meditation, whether it's inside our Zoom container or whether it's just at
yeah,
home on your couch or whatever, get your kids, get your family, get your people, man. I want those global coherence initiative sensors to recognize that there's a wave of amplified energy that's going out around the planet and that we're able to do that. It's a small part of what we can do as humans to be able to
yes,
give to the collective. So
yes.
I'm amped and I'm ready. So
Yeah, yeah, me too. Alicia says can't wait. And Glenn and Bonnie. Oh, Glenn and Bonnie, nice. So looking forward to your meditation, Oris. Great, great, great. Join us for that. And like Oris said, if you can't make it online, just be with us in spirit and energy. Oris, I know you have some gifts to mention as well.
yeah,
So
if you want to
you're
fire up the
for
links,
that.
um, I have the meditation I'm going to put out as part of a three-part series for people to access through my website, and I think there should be a link for that. But I'm also working on a quick workbook that I'm putting the finishing touches on. So these gifts will go out after the event anyway, so I'll have it ready for then. And then my VIP gift is um, it's an open space, like a Zoom meeting to call people in. Do you have the date there? I can't even remember the date. It's next week, I think Wednesday, for a 90-minute session where we're going to get together. We're going to open up this hollow bone and we're going to delve into this a little deeper and we're going to create an incredible coherence with one another. I get excited about it. The thing I love most about it, and I don't want to take up Summer's time. I know we're a minute over time, but after we ramp the energy up and we cycle it around, everybody looks so clear and
Mm,
everybody is lit right up. And they're in such a space of open-hearted, coherent space that it's like, why are we not gathering as humans and supporting one another to do this quick and simple and easy thing? It's
yeah.
too easy. It is too simple to be seen.
Right, right, right. And it just
Mhm.
points back to what Patricia Albert was talking about earlier today. right? It's not, I mean, I won't word it as beautifully as she did, but it's not about all this personal excavation. It's
Yep.
it's about this coming together and
Elevation, man.
yeah,
Elevation.
elevation. Yeah.
Well, you've got the links in there, Sherry. You know what? I'll invite us at this time just because of the time. Maybe we'll just skip the outro music and we'll go
Sure.
right into summer.
Sounds good. Okay, thank
Okay,
you,
awesome.
Oris.
Thank you,
Thank
Sherry.
you for and I just want to say as you leave again and publicly, thank you for coming together with me and co-creating this with me. It's just been such a joy working
I
with
love it. Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. My pleasure.